Today I am dehydrating eggs for my Pacific Crest Trail through hike. This is awesome. This is 20 eggs that I've already dehydrated. 20 eggs right there. It's not heavy at all. 1,400 calories. It has a calorie to weight ratio of peanut butter, which in my mind is the holy grail. Really high in protein. I think it's going to be a great power food. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that, show you how I did it. From the eggs all the way to the vacuum sealed product right here. So obviously you'll need a dehydrator, and you can really just lay wax paper on the dehydrator trays and then pour your egg on top of that. But I'm too good for that, so I have these fancy little plastic trays, which are nice because they have a lip and kind of stay on, and you can just fill them in a little bit better. So I have these. These are like fruit roll-up type trays that you can buy for a lot of dehydrators, and I'm going to use them. So have that going, and of course you're going to need a huge bowl, a fork, and enough eggs for a chicken orphanage. So I've got all those things. I'm just gonna go ahead and make this happen. So I'm just gonna start throwing them in here. Once you have your giant bowl of eggs, just go ahead and scramble them up good. So with one of these down, again, you could use wax paper, just throw that down, pour eggs on it. You'll probably want to experiment with how many eggs each of these hold. In this particular hydrator, I find it's about, I'd say, 5 eggs. Just gonna use the spatula, scrape out the last of the snotty eggs. And that's it. Put the lid on the dehydrator. And just plug it in. This really only has one setting. I don't know that it's that critical. I think you can do it in the oven too, but I find that the oven can be a little bit too hot sometimes. So, word of warning. I'm gonna plug this in and gonna wait a really long time. I'm finding that it's like 10 hours, 12 hours. Better longer than shorter. They really can't be too dehydrated, but they can be still a little bit sticky. So really just want to run it for a long time. So there it is, plugged in. Gonna come back. Gonna check on this sometime tomorrow. See how it's going. The eggs have been in the dehydrator now for at least 10 hours. And they're clearly nice and cracked, which is a good sign. You also want to make sure that they're not like sticking to it. If they are, they're probably not done. Just because they're cracked doesn't mean that they're totally dehydrated. But all of these are just cracked and loose, so they're nice and dehydrated. I'm just going to take them and dump them into a big bowl. So I now have my big bowl of dehydrated eggs. They look a little bit like cornflakes, but they are not. And you should under no circumstance mix milk with them and eat them as cereal. Alright, my final step is to just powder them. And for that I'm going to use a blender, which works really well. I'm sure there are other things that you could use as well, but I happen to have a blender. You want to make sure that everything you use is really dry, because you just spent a lot of work taking all the moisture out of your eggs. You don't want to put it back in, obviously. I'm going to use a scoop. Scoop my powdered eggs into my blender container. There we go. Eggs ready to blend. There you have it. Nice powdered eggs. Delicious, delicious powdered eggs. Now, this is a good point to mention that you poured raw eggs into your dehydrator. Even though they are now dehydrated, they are still raw eggs, and I imagine, theoretically at least, probably practically, you could still get all kinds of nasty things like salmonella from your powdered eggs. So when you open this up, you gotta be careful not to get egg dust everywhere and get sick as a result. Do not snort your eggs off a prostitute. Don't do it. Good advice. Never mind the risk of salmonella. I'm gonna go ahead and take my powdered eggs, and I'm just going to slowly and carefully, because I don't want to breathe in the raw egg, slowly and carefully just dump eggs into a measuring thing. Now, one of the reasons I want to do that is because I can measure out exactly how much I have. I find that about 1 tablespoon equals 80 calories by my calculation. So this will give you an idea of serving size. My final step, I now have about 20 eggs here in powdered form. And my final step is to just package them in a way that will preserve them for a long time. I'm using these on a Pacific Crest Trail thru hike, and they might be at our resupplier for 5 or almost 6 months before they finally get shipped out to us. They'll be in all kinds of conditions, so I want to package them really well. In order to package these, I am going to use a vacuum sealer and vacuum bags and a silica gel desiccant, which is just a fancy word for those do not eat packages you see in all that food. You can buy a big bag of these like this on Amazon, and I'm sure elsewhere as well. I'll throw up some links for you if you want them on my blog. In fact, the vacuum sealer and the desiccant I all got on Amazon specifically to prepare my backpacking food. So I'm gonna go ahead and make a package for my eggs. There we go. Gonna go ahead and place my do not eat bags in here. This is just gonna soak up any moisture that might still be in the package. Keep it nice and dry over the long term. Now I'm just gonna seal this bag up. Sucking out all the air, make sure that you're sucking out the moisture that might potentially spoil your eggs. So it's just sealed and should stay fresh for a really long time. I haven't tested this, but other people who do this method have claimed that they last several years. So there we go. Should be more than enough for a 6-month through hike. So I thought I'd end this video with a short bit of tips about taking your eggs or eating your eggs. Uh, so I guess we should just address the obvious. Powdered eggs are never going to be the same as real fresh eggs. But I have learned a couple tips that make them a bit better. So remember that this is 20 eggs, which is a lot of eggs. But when it rehydrates, it inevitably never seems like 20 eggs. The temptation is to take a few little bit of eggs like that and think, well, that's like 2-3 eggs. Try and make it look like 2 or 3 eggs. But that's actually a pretty bad idea. You really want to be careful about how much water you add. I think that you could add milk too, and it might be a little bit better, but I'm going to be on the trail. I just kind of mix some powdered milk in there with it. The key here, though, is that they gotta stay really thick. I found that when they're thin, you just don't hit the spot. So keep them kind of thick. That's almost good. Gonna thin them down just a little bit more. Just gonna mix them all in, make sure I get rid of any lumps. Now you can scramble these, and I have, and it works alright, but I think it's better if you just make a kind of like a egg patty or like an omelet type thing out of it. Mmm, powdered eggs. The flip. Looks a bit like a pancake. It's a bit like cooking a pancake. Which is a lot more rubbery than a pancake. Mmm, delicious. Powdered eggs. Alright, forget it. Just snort your eggs. I have no idea what I'm doing.